Hello, I'm Bernard Hickey from interest.co.nz and welcome to a special economic weather report brought to you in association with Bank of New Zealand. Today we look at migration figures for October, which show that net migration in October actually fell to 680 coming in, from 1,030 coming in September. Now this is mainly because New Zealanders have started leaving to go and live in Australia again. When you look at the number of people living in New Zealand who've gone to live permanently in Australia, in October it's up to 3,031. This is almost double what it was in October a year ago. A large number of them are New Zealand residents, so it's not just a few people coming here for a year or two in New Zealand and then going back to Australia or bouncing on to Australia. They're actually New Zealand residents who are leaving. And they're leaving at a rate of 87 a day. 3,031 overall left, and when you look at it, that's almost double what it was a year ago. However, it is down from the number we saw in October 2008, which was the peak of the number of New Zealanders leaving to go and live in Australia. And you look at this chart here, you can see that from 2003 onwards, New Zealanders started to leave to go and live in Australia. And right through to the election, ironically, November 2008, we were leaving at a great rate. Then we turned around a bit. The Australian economy started to weaken off and New Zealanders stopped going there in such large numbers. But it's clear in the last 2 to 3 months, New Zealanders have started to go and live in Australia again. The gap between Australian wages and New Zealand wages had widened out from around 30% to over 40% in many cases. The Australian mining boom is certainly helping. And with lower unemployment in Australia, around about 5% to our 6.5% or so, it's clear many New Zealanders are finding work, paying higher wages in Australia. Now that has implications for our economy overall, and particularly for the housing market, where the number of migrants coming in often has an impact on house prices, particularly in Auckland, where most people tend to come to start with. But when you look at the makeup of the net migration coming into New Zealand, it's clear that not all of those people coming here, and remember there was net about 680 arrived in October, not all of them may be house buyers. Now it's fair that the biggest group of people coming to New Zealand net migration-wise were from the UK, about 900, and many of those will be New Zealanders returning. So they may be house buyers. But when you look at the numbers coming from India, about 600, and from China, about 400, a large number of those will be students who are on student visas, but they still count as net permanent long-term migrants. This is all gels well with what we're seeing in the housing market, where activity is relatively weak despite it being the middle of spring. And also mortgage approvals are flat despite low interest rates. We're also seeing a rise in the inventories, the number of houses being put onto the market for sale, and a rise in the amount of time to sell a house. So there's increasing pressure on the housing market for prices to fall, as many buyers hold back, waiting for those prices to fall. I'm Bernard Hickey. That was a special economic weather report brought to you in association with Bank of New Zealand.